On our briefing this week, we're joined by Phil Gawne from Infrastructure, and quite a flurry of press releases, but two I want to concentrate on. Savings in infrastructure overall. You continue to bang the drum that you are bringing these in. Of course, there's the back side of this that you're putting on more costs onto the public, but we'll deal with that later. But what makes you say that you're on track here with your savings?
Well, because we are. You know, that's one fairly fundamental reason why we would say it. You know, what is clear is that in last year's budget, the department was asked to find half of the total savings that government was going to make this year. My department was asked to effectively find £2 million worth of increased income, together with around £4 million worth of reduced expenditure or cuts, for want of a better word. And we are certainly having quite a struggle to meet our budget, but I've never yet missed a budget target, and I'm determined that this year I'm not going to be starting to miss budget targets, with the one exception that the Department of Economic Development just before Christmas volunteered to transfer £100,000 over to my department to cover the free parking in the run-up to Christmas.
Okay, but what about the £25 for parking outside your house? Now, that's something you tried that, you failed, therefore you've lost some money on that one. Do you feel you've just been flying a lot of kites up here?
Well, to a certain extent, we were under a lot of pressure to try and find answers to some of the problems that we've got. £2 million is a big increase in your income target, particularly at a time when, you know, just maintaining what you have is difficult enough. You know, you've got income is generated through the airports, through the ports, through waste charges, things like this. And of course, increasing waste charges have actually resulted in a decrease in the total amount of waste that's produced, because people are more inclined to recycle, so they can pull their costs down. We know that some airlines have pulled out this year, so we've had a reduced income there.
I'll deal with
so altogether, you know, just meeting our income target without the increase was going to be difficult enough. So there are lots of things that we've been trying to introduce. Some we knew were always going to be difficult. The parking permit one was one of those, but there are other things that we have.
Was that Mr. Robertshaw being in the Cabinet Office that yelled louder than you?
Well, no, I think there were some reasonable arguments put in relation to some of the drawbacks, and perhaps there were issues that we hadn't thought through as thoroughly as we should have done, not least the level of service. You know, I think people possibly would be prepared to pay if they thought that they were getting a reasonable service.
So you got it wrong?
Some aspects, yeah. But equally, I think we didn't sell it in the way that I would have liked, and some of that was down to the fact that I had this massive big chunk of stuff that I had to get done in a relatively short period of time. You know, it had, and the great thing about next year's budget, which I now know about and I can't tell you about because obviously the budget is next week, I'm reasonably confident that I'll be able to deal with my budget, not because it's an easy budget, it's going to be as tough as this year, but I'm starting the planning process for that now, whereas previous years, and this is no criticism of former ministers, I had both David Cretney as a former minister and then Lawrence Skelly as the former minister, both of whom had different perspectives on what we should or shouldn't do. Despite what the public think, the civil service don't run the department. The minister ultimately makes the decision. So the lack of clarity as to the political direction had resulted in significant delays in this year's budget being implemented.
Well, Mr. Gawne was the one, that stopped the promenade scheme in its tracks. And talk about tracks, horse tram tracks. Still, we have no definitive answer on where we're going with that. Is that correct, or have you now made up your mind?
There's some very, very exciting plans being developed, which I'm hopeful we'll be in a position to talk about probably early in March, as a result of a range of different things that were going on, not least the concerns that people had about shared space, particularly on the walkway. we've had the opportunity, thanks to an intervention from Dudley Butt, to get an expert on shared space highways planning over to the Isle of Man. And it's fair to say that my highways engineers, who have been trained that you keep the cars away from the pedestrians, you keep the pedestrians away from trams, you keep trams away from cars, you know, all this kind of thing. Everyone has to be in their defined spaces. I think they've been quite impressed by what they've heard from this man. So effectively, the whole space becomes shared space,
right.
and I think you're going to like what you see when eventually we get to.
It's been ironical, hasn't it? Slightly, they're digging up the prom anyway and doing work, laying out some more sewage or pipes or whatever that's going on at the minute down there. But
I'm not sure that's ironical.
Well, you know, like they've gone ahead and digging without you actually making a decision there.
I think the ironical bit would be if we got the promenade finished and then they came to dig up the pipes.
I'm sure that was all combined there, wasn't it? Initially?
Well,
it would have gone ahead as one.
Clearly, we need to get the works done, and actually some of that work that's happening is going to assist in you getting that out of the way.
Are you talking with Douglas Corporation? Have you sorted the tram people out in the sense of what is happening in future? Are they on board with you?
We are actively in discussions with Douglas.
They felt a bit left out of the loop, didn't they?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends. You can't speak to everyone, and I know from personal experience, both when for the few years I was a backbencher, and also as minister. Unfortunately, you can't. If you're communicating with everybody you need to communicate, you can't get your job done. So occasionally there are areas of communication that could be better. But we've got a good working relationship. I'm in reasonably regular discussion with Councillor Christian and some of the other councillors. All the discussions I have are upbeat and positive.
Okay. But big news is next month, March, there will be a final definitive idea of what is going to happen to the promenade and the trams.
Yes, certainly. We have, I think, developed what now will be a better scheme and probably cheaper and easy to maintain.